I feel the need to talk about my writing style and my first book. Not the one that fell apart. The one that fell apart because it was based off of the Dungeons & Dragons campaign. And as I got into it, I realized there is a lot of stuff that happens in Dungeons & Dragons campaigns that are very not friendly to a book. Players hand wave. They go, there's no real reason why my character should know how to do this, but it will allow us to move the story forward. That would be kind of cool. And as a DM, my job is to make sure the players are having a good time. So I would just be like, sure, I'll go with that. And, I mean, it makes for great games around the table and a really wild story to be written. But when you start trying to put that into a novel where characters, their motivations have to make sense. This isn't a Looney Tune. This isn't some weird cartoonish structure where reality is kind of optional. It's not like that. This is a book. This is a story. These characters have to be as real to life as I can make them. And as a result of that, I am going to, I put down the first book. It got to a point where I realized it just wasn't going anymore. It wasn't moving forward, and I hated my main character. Cornelius Victoria. I tried so hard to make him not Harry Potter. I even had jokes in the script that only would make sense if you had read the Harry Potter books and then gone, oh, I see what you did there. There was a whole scene where he carries a wand with him because it's a good folk eye, and then somebody breaks his wand and is like, haha, you don't have any magic, and he goes, you've read too many children's fairy tales, and then hits him with a big powerful fireball spell. But it was my first book. I was trying things out, and I flailed trying to make that character consistent. His personality would shift back and forth between one inconsistency and another. Sometimes he was a giant wuss that didn't know what to do. He'd have moments of extremely cool and competent, and there weren't any really good reasons for why he would do this. It was just my inexperience as an author and my inability to really choose what kind of a story I was telling. That's the reason why when I decided to shift and fully commit to Little Red Wolf, I completely changed the type of character I was making. Now, first of all, Little Red Wolf had a first draft that I wrote that ended up being the first half of the first draft ended up being the first adventure that happens in the second Little Red Wolf book. So it didn't go away entirely. But the first Little Red Wolf book, the first Little Red Wolf story I ever wrote was a dirty Little Red Riding Hood story. Little Red Riding Hood goes into the woods, meets the big bad wolf, who's a werewolf. They have crazy werewolf sex, and then he infects her, and she starts becoming a werewolf. That was the story. It was 10 pages, wasn't much. But after I had written it, I realized the characters were still talking to me, so I wrote 10 chapters. And it's the opening story of what is now the second book. It is the waking up next to Arthur. It is the meeting of Pakanadara, meeting with the Fairy Queen, going off to face the wolves, the whole rescue that happens. That whole first part of book 2 was the original story after the giant sex thing had happened. And so I got about 20 chapters in and realized I had no idea what to do with this book, so I started over. And I wrote the entire first Little Red Wolf book, which was, very different from what I had been doing. Now, one of the things that really made me go along with it was I really enjoyed the character of Selena. She was a powerful female character and a total just jerk. Really, Selena's a jerk. She really is. And I've discovered a lot of my favorite characters are like that. They're just the unpleasant ones. Gothel is also like one of my favorite characters, and I'm absolutely going to do a story of her someday. And these are just ways that I tend to write these stories now. That before, God, I had to construct all of these ideas. So, I guess the question is, when I decided to start over, how did I do it?